dear friend Tanner. Thank you for coming. And so what we are doing in, this is an event that happens every month, one Sunday a month, called Sharing the Dharma Day. And so what we're doing currently is that Venerable Thubten Chodron, the abbess, is going through one of the books that she wrote, which is called Working with Anger. So we're looking at that topic of anger. And these meditations that we do prior to her talk are usually about the topic of the previous month's talk. And last month she read the chapter on patience, which talks about the benefits of patience. Patience is like the opposite of anger. And so that will be the topic of today's meditation. I'll lead a meditation on that topic. And patience is also called fortitude or tolerance or forbearance. So different people like to use different terms for it. But basically, it's when we are able to respond to difficult people or difficult situations like a traffic jam without getting upset and angry and, letting off steam, as we say. And instead being able to remain calm, non-reactive. But ideally, patience doesn't mean like you're just, showing calmness on the outside, but inside your mind is seething with anger. So it's not like that. It's not like we're just repressing our anger and then pretending that we're not angry. That's not the meaning of patience. So instead, patience involves understanding that getting angry isn't the right thing to do, and it isn't helpful, and in fact, it's harmful. It can lead to all kinds of problems, both for ourselves and for others, for everybody. So understanding that, and then working on transforming the situation, transforming our mind, ideally, and transforming the situation into something that's more constructive, more beneficial for everybody, rather than just problematic for everybody. And even being able to bring compassion and love into the situation. That's harder to do, but at least if we can try not to act out anger and harmfulness, then that's involved. That's what patience involves. And so I think it's something we all have experience of, right? We have all been able to be patient, and we've also had the experience of other people being patient with us when we're being difficult. And so, so I thought that in this meditation, we'll look at that. We'll look at, real life situations where both we've been on the giving end and on the receiving end of patience, just to get in touch with that experience, and then just use our wisdom, our natural wisdom, to see if we can recognize that this is a much better way of reacting to situations, more satisfying for ourselves and also for others, and less likely to just increase the problems in the situation. And also in Buddhism, we talk about how we can increase our patience. We all have a certain amount of it, but we also have our limits. Yeah, so we get to a point where we lose it, and then we become impatient and angry. But it's possible to work on that and gradually increase those limits so that we can remain patient in more and more difficult circumstances. Okay, so first we'll do some prayers that will be shown on the screen, I believe. Is that right? For those who wish to join the prayers, you don't have to, but they'll be on the screen. These are prayers that help us get into a good state of mind for the meditation. And then we'll have a period of silence. We'll do a kind of quick scan of the body to relax, be in the present, and then some silence, so you can do meditation on the breathing. I'll give some instructions if you haven't done that before, how to meditate on the breath. So have a period of silent meditation, and then I'll lead a guided kind of reflective meditation, contemplative meditation on this topic of patience.
I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. Tayata Om Bane Bane Mahamunaye Soha. Tayata Om Bane Bane Mahamunaye Soha. Tayata Om Bane Bane Mahamunaye Soha.
So first of all, make sure you're sitting in a comfortable position so that you won't have to move too much during the meditation session. I mean, it is okay to move. It's not that you have to be like a statue, but it's better to try not to move too much, partly because it can disturb people around you, but it can also be more disturbing to your own mind. So we do try to sit still as much as we can. So that's why it's good to start off in a good position. It's also good if you can keep your back straight, sit up straight, because that helps your mind be more clear and better able to concentrate during the meditation. But that doesn't mean being stiff and tight. So it's also important to be relaxed as much as you can. So I'm going to take you through a kind of little body scan to make sure our body is as relaxed as possible. So first of all, feel the top of your head and let go of any tension you may have on the top of your head. Let that area relax. And then from there, let your attention move down slowly through your head, relaxing any tension you may have, both inside your head and also outside on the surface. You can relax your forehead and your eyes and the rest of your face. On the sides and back of your head. And also inside of your head. Let your brain relax. You don't need to be frantically thinking about lots of things during the meditation. In fact, we try not to do that. We try to just stay in the present and stay focused on what we're meditating on and not let our mind go elsewhere to other places, other times, other activities, just being in the present, here and now. So let your brain relax as much as possible. And try to have the whole of your head, both outside and inside, as relaxed and free of tension as possible. And do the same with your neck. Relax your neck and throat, outside and inside. And then let your awareness move down into your shoulders and upper back. So that's an area where we sometimes hold on to tension. So if there is any tension in that area, see if you can just let it go. Release it, let it disappear. And then continue going down your back, relaxing any tension, the middle part of your back and the lower part of your back. Go all the way down to your seat. Relax the muscles in your buttocks. Then bring your awareness to the front part of your body, starting with your chest. Relax your chest, your lungs and heart. Continue to move down through your torso, relaxing the middle part of your body, the diaphragm, the abdomen. Relax all the organs and muscles in those areas. And all the way down to the pelvic area. And from there, let your awareness go down into your right leg. Relax the upper part of your right leg. And then the lower part of the right leg. And then your right foot all the way down to the toes. And then shift your awareness to your left leg, starting with the upper part of the leg, and relax that area. And then the lower part of the left leg. And then your left foot, all the way down to the toes. And then from there, move your awareness to your right arm, starting with the upper part of your arm. Let that relax. And then relax the lower part of the right arm. And then your right hand and fingers. Then move your awareness to the upper part of your left arm. Relax any tension you may have there. And then do the same with the lower part of the left arm. And finally, your left hand and fingers. So we've just done a brief scan of the body to try to let go of tension and be as relaxed as possible. You might still have some tension in the body, but that's okay. Just let that be and try to stay as relaxed as you can during the meditation. And let your breathing be natural flow in and out. And put your awareness on your breathing. In other words, be aware of the breath as it's flowing in and out. And try to do this without controlling the breath. You don't need to do that because your body knows how to breathe on its own. So just let go of controlling and just let the body breathe in a natural way. And then just with your mind, with your awareness, try to be aware of each breath as it's coming in and going out, one breath after another. And it's not that easy to do because our mind has the habit of thinking about lots of different things. And so thoughts will come up. You have thoughts coming up, memories, plans, what you're going to do later, and all kinds of things. So that's normal. Don't be surprised. But try not to get caught up in the thoughts. Instead, let them go, put them aside, and come back to the breath. Come back to the breath again and again. Each time your mind wanders away from it. And it can be helpful to count your breaths. That can help you stay focused on the breath. So you can count up to 5, each full inhalation and exhalation of the breath counts as 1, and you count up to 5, and then you start again at 1. So you can try that if you find it helpful, but it's not necessary, it's optional. But anyway, the point is to try to remain calm and still, let your breathing be natural, and then be aware of your breathing, coming in and going out, and bringing your awareness back to the breath each time it wanders away. So we'll try that for about 5 minutes. shift to the contemplative or reflective part of the meditation. So this involves, thinking, contemplating in order to reach, ideally, some kind of positive, constructive conclusion about something. So again, we're going to do meditation on patience, which is kind of the opposite to anger, getting angry and having hatred and so on. So patience is mainly an internal state of mind or attitude rather than some external way of acting. And it doesn't mean being passive in situations where we should act. For example, if there's a child that's about to run into the road, or if you're dealing with somebody who's like a drug addict or an alcoholic and they're trying to manipulate you. So we can be internally patient in those situations, but still act in a strong way to stop some kind of behavior that's potentially harmful. So to get a sense of how beneficial patience is, think of a time when somebody was patient with you. So it might have been your mother or father or a teacher or a friend at a time when you were acting out in some way. You were angry and frustrated, maybe acting in a destructive way. And instead of being angry at you, somebody was patient and kind. So see if you can think of a situation like that where you were on the receiving end of patience. And if you can't think of one where someone was being patient with you, you could also think of a situation where you observed someone being patient with somebody else. Like, for example, a parent being patient with a child who was throwing a tantrum, or somebody being patient in a traffic jam. So try to think of a situation where you observed another person's patience, either with you or with someone else. So once you were able to recall that situation, and just check how it was for you. How did you feel when observing or experiencing another person's patience? See if you can think of a time when you were able to be patient with someone who was acting in a difficult way or challenging way, or in a situation that was challenging, like a traffic jam, having to wait a long time, and you were able to not react with anger and frustration, but were able to be patient. So see if you can remember that experience and how that was for you. And you can also look at how your ability to remain patient affected other people who were around at the time, and also your relationship with the person that you could have gotten angry at. So what was the outcome of your being patient? And it's also helpful to compare the situation where we can be patient with when we can't be patient and instead get angry. So when we can't be patient and instead we get angry and show our anger, then not only are we disturbed, our state of mind is disturbed, but the people around us also feel disturbed and uncomfortable. I don't think anyone likes being around an angry person, even animals. One lady who was here recently told us that when she starts getting angry, her 2 dogs run out of the house. It's like a really negative energy. Nobody likes to be around. And anger can lead to harmful behavior. We can hurt others with our words and even physically. But on the other hand, if we can stay calm and refrain from getting angry and acting out our anger, doing harmful things, then we will feel better, and so will those around us. And there's a greater chance that we can resolve whatever the problem is in ways that are satisfying for everybody involved. We'll see if that rings true. Is that your experience? So we'll now bring the meditation to a close, and it's good to have some sort of conclusion to the meditation based on what we saw, what we understood during the meditation. So you can think about how you would like to be going forward. Do you want to continue being angry and acting out your anger? Or would you like to be more patient, to learn how you can increase your patience and be able to act or respond even in difficult situations with greater patience? So you might feel ready to make such a conclusion, but you may not be, and you could also think, well, I want to think about this more. I need more time to think about these points. So that's also a conclusion, just to make that determination. But see if you can come to some kind of positive, constructive conclusion to the meditation. And then finally, let's make a mental dedication of the positive energy from doing this meditation. So we can mentally dedicate it to the welfare of all living beings, and may it help everyone learn to be more patient and less angry and harmful.
Thank you, Venerable Kadro. So we'll stand, again, out of respect to the teacher and the teaching. So we'll now take a 15-minute break for tea, water, stretch. In general, we've calmed our minds a bit. I recommend that it's not that we need to not talk to each other, but that we try to hold our conversations or our way of being in a gentle space to prepare ourselves for the teaching. So if you wish to remain silent throughout this time, that's totally fine. Nobody will force you to talk. If you want to have a conversation with someone, that's also fine. It's quietly, as much as you can. You're welcome to hang out on the deck if you would like to do that. Also downstairs, if you go down the stairs and almost right in front of you, in front of the statue, on the other side of the statue, there's what we call our book nook. It's a place where you can peruse the books that both of our teachers have written. Venerable Chodron has written very many. Venerable Sangye Kadro has some there too. Take a look. Everything there is made totally on offering. So don't bother with the cover price. It's just like everything at the Abbey. These are only available freely by offering. So if that's what you want to do at this time, that's fine. And then we'll get a gong for returning, and then Venerable Chodron will give the talk at 12. Okay. I'm sorry, at 11. Tayata Om Mune Mune Maha Mune Soha. 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 Tayata Om Mune Mune Maha Mune Soha.
Okay, welcome everybody. Okay, so we've been on our Sharing the Dharma days, once a month, been working with the book, Working with Anger, okay, which is taken from Shanti Deva's 8th century book, Guide to a Bodhisattva's Way of Life. So we've been talking about anger, yeah, one of those emotions that I think we're all familiar with in one way or another. Either we have it or we've been the receiver of it. Yeah, when we have it and give it to other people, we think anger is very good. When we're on the receiving end of it, then anger is very bad because people are accusing me of doing things I didn't do, and they don't understand, and they're closed-minded. But when I have anger, it is just, it is good, and I let those people know what their mistakes are out of my great compassion so that they can change. Yeah, you agree? Yeah. It sounds good in theory, but if you're mad at me, be careful because you're wrong. Yeah. When I'm mad at you, yeah, you're also wrong. Yeah. So, yeah, you're not sure. Okay, so we're on chapter 4 right now, and it's called, Is Anger Ever Useful? Because in our culture, you know, in the US nowadays, there's anger all over the place, isn't there? You know, it's very polarized. People are angry about, I mean, somebody just has different opinions and they're angry. What is an opinion? Can you even touch an opinion? Yet you know, somebody has a different opinion and it's like, oh, how dare they? An opinion is just somebody's thought. Yeah, thoughts can be powerful, but thoughts can also be very ridiculous, and our thoughts can change very quickly. Yeah, when you think about it. So, you know, sometimes getting too hooked up and, you know, somebody has a different view than me, therefore, blah, 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 and I get mad. But why? They haven't done anything harmful. They're just saying things I disagree with. That doesn't mean they're a bad person. I can debate the views with them. We can discuss, yeah, but that doesn't mean that somebody who holds a different view is bad or, evil. That's also a popular word that's been going around, I don't agree with all of that. Yeah, human beings are human beings. Everybody wants to be happy. Nobody wants to suffer. We're all very much alike in that way. Yeah, to me, it makes more sense to work for everybody's happiness and alleviate everybody's suffering. But anyway, anger is anger, isn't it? And we get angry. So is anger ever useful? So I'm going to read from the book and then stop and make a few comments, yeah? Okay, meanwhile, when you're hearing talks about anger, refrain from elbowing your husband or wife and saying, listen carefully to what she's saying. Okay. So some people see advantages to anger. How true is their claims? Unless we find them to be false, we will not be motivated to transform our anger. In other words, as long as we see anger as advantageous, we're going to continue to have it. Yeah. It's crucial then to investigate one by one the claims about the advantages of anger to see if they were valid. Okay, so the first story in this book, I'll read the paragraph, but I want to tell you the story. I was invited to, it was maybe University of Michigan or University of Wisconsin. There was a department on conflict resolution, and so I was invited to give a talk about anger. Yeah, so it was mostly to the faculty in the department, yeah. So people who specialized in conflict resolution. And so I talked about the disadvantages of anger, which was the previous chapter in the book. But, anger, is anybody happy when they're angry? No. Do you say things that are really mean to the people you love very much when you're angry? Yes. Do you sometimes say things that afterwards you regret because it really hurts somebody? Yes. Do you need anger for social justice? And here the people said, yes, you need to be angry. And, having been in Dharamsala with the Tibetan community for many years and heard His Holiness Dalai Lama talk about this issue, yeah, and he doesn't agree at all, yeah, about the benefits of anger. And there was one interview I saw, somebody, I think it was from the LA Times, many, many years ago, was interviewing him about the situation in Tibet. And if you're not familiar with what happened in the 1950s, the Chinese Communist government started encroaching on Tibetan territory. In 1959, they invited the Dalai Lama to an opera in Lhasa, but he was supposed to come alone. Okay, that's like inviting the President of America to go to Russia alone. So the Tibetans were not going to let that happen, okay? And it wound up to be an abortive uprising against the Chinese communists at that time. This was in March of 1959. At that point, His Holiness, followed by tens of thousands of Tibetans, crossed the Himalaya mountains and became refugees in India. Nehru had given some, well, my teachers, most of the monks, went to Buxa in India, which was the old British POW camp. Yeah, if you ever saw the movie 7 Years in Tibet, it was where Heinrich Herr, and other British people were incarcerated. So it hadn't been used in a while. It was old and decrepit, and the Tibetans were going from high altitude where it was cold, where they had a certain kind of diet, into India where it was a different kind of diet, from Tibet, which had very few bacteria and viruses because of the altitude, to India in the plains where it was hot and humid, and you had bacteria and viruses galore. Yeah. Then when the Chinese communists fully occupied Tibet, there was genocide, there was environmental destruction. They just went into the monasteries and tore them apart, sometimes aided by Tibetans. It wasn't just the Chinese who did this. And, destroyed the centers of the Tibetan culture. Okay, so this journalist from the LA Times was interviewing His Holiness and saying, how do you feel about the Chinese occupation and what happened in Tibet? And, aren't you angry about it? And His Holiness paused and he said, if I were angry about this, I couldn't sleep well at night. I wouldn't eat well because my mind would be so disturbed. I wouldn't do anything very well being overcome by my anger. And he starts talking about the disadvantages of anger. And this journalist was like, what? Because she was giving him, by her questions, the opportunity to rip into the communist takeover of Tibet and really criticize what had happened and expose it to the world. And instead, the Dalai Lama says, I'm not angry about it. Yeah, the journalist could not figure out what was going on. Yeah. But this is, very much His Holiness's take on it. And I've seen many interviews, many teachings where he adheres to this position very much. So it made me, the combination of me plus Shantideva, this author of the 8th century text, made me start looking at my anger and see the disadvantages. Okay. But then the question always comes, is anger ever useful? Yeah, because we are often encouraged by people to be angry. Politicians encourage us to be angry. Our anger may be useful to the politicians. I don't know how useful it is to us. Yeah. Okay. So, first question is a reliable and necessary detector of wrongdoing. So is anger ever a reliable and necessary detector of wrongdoing? In other words, when you're angry, and this is what when I started to give the talk at that university, the people in the Department of Conflict Resolution got very upset with me. Really, they were very upset. And anger is useful. It's good, because anger tells us something is wrong. Well, then the question is, that is the only indicator? You have to be angry to know that something is unwrong or unfair? Yeah, I don't think so. There's no pervasion there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so it was quite interesting. They were really mad at me. But I had to stay and give the Q&A with them. Anyway, so here's in the book. Many years ago, I met with a group of specialists in the field of mediation and conflict resolution. As I spoke about the disadvantages of anger, these professionals became tense and eventually angry until one of them blurted out, "Anger is necessary and beneficial because it gives us information about what is wrong." Okay, their argument was that anger lets us know that another's behavior was not acceptable. Okay, without it, they claimed, we could not discriminate just from unjust, acceptable versus unacceptable. Okay, now I question that. Yeah, the only way to discern what is fair from unfair, what is just and unjust, is only if you're angry. There's got to be other ways to discern that probably enable you to act with more clarity. Because when we're angry, we don't act with a lot of clarity. We just explode. Okay, so to continue. However, anger is not a reliable or necessary indicator of wrongdoing. We may become angry not because our rights have been denied, but because we did not get what we wanted. Aha! Yeah. That's one of the number one situations why we get angry, because we wanted things to be a certain way and we didn't get it. Yeah. Okay. So we may become angry not because our rights have been denied, but because we did not get what we wanted. We may become angry not because somebody's behavior is unacceptable according to basic societal and ethical standards, but because we are hypersensitive. Oh, you mean there might be something on our side that makes us susceptible to getting angry? Yeah. In other words, we have buttons, we have sensitive topics, and all somebody needs to do is say that word and yeah. If you're from a minority group of whatever kind, all somebody sometimes needs to do is say the name of that group, and instantly you're like, oh, they're gonna criticize. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Okay. And even if someone has violated our rights or gone beyond conventionally acceptable etiquette or protocol, anger is not necessary to signal that the other has been inappropriate. Yeah. With a clear and calm mind, we can assess the situation and reach the same conclusion that somebody's behavior was not appropriate. Yeah, but we do this not because we're angry and give all sorts of negative labels to the other person. We just look at the situation and try and assess, what it is in a clear way. Indeed, the latter method of detecting wrongdoing with a clear and calm mind is a more beneficial method than anger, since it has none of the adverse side effects of anger discussed previously, like screaming, flying off the handle, blaming the other person for everything that's wrong in the world. I don't need to tell you. Okay. So although anger is not a reliable, necessary, or beneficial source of information for detecting wrong, it does let us know that our mind is disturbed and our buttons are being pushed. Yeah, definitely. When we're angry, we know our mind is disturbed. Okay. When our mind is disturbed, do we think clearly? No, we're too disturbed. And we just want out of that situation, and to put the anger on someone or something else. Okay. And anger often lets us know that our buttons have been pushed. Yeah. Somebody makes some innocent remark, and I get angry. Yeah. Nobody else in the world is angry. I'm angry because I have an idea about how things should be, and they're not happening according to that. Of course, it was my idea, not the world's idea. Nobody else agreed to it, but I just assumed because it's my idea, it must be the best idea, and that everybody should do things that way. Don't you feel that way about your ideas? So, then somebody else has another idea that they peel the potatoes differently than I want, how I think they should be peeled, and I get upset. Yeah. So we have the famous story of one of our previous cooks. In the kitchen, everything had its own place, and the spatula had to be in a certain place so you could find it easily. When the spatula wasn't there, let alone when the knives weren't where they were supposed to be and the serving spoons where she thought they should be, and so, whoa, all hell would break out in the kitchen. Okay. And, she would explode. Just because, so this became a joke at the Abbey about be careful where you put the spatulas, okay? Yeah, if you're looking out for your own safety, you don't want to be a recipient of her anger, because she could really let you have it. You put the spatula where it was supposed to go. Okay, so it became a joke. I mean, this nun had a heart of gold. She was really very loving and very kind, but you just had to get used to these outbursts and not take them personally. Okay, but where you put the spatula was definitely a button for her, okay? Because she wanted a nice, organized kitchen where she knew where everything was. And the people who volunteered to work in the kitchen that day didn't have the whole thing memorized about where everything went. Yeah? Okay, but her buttons were pushed. Okay. So rather than acting according to our habitual pattern of blaming others for our anger, we can note that our buttons being pushed depends on two factors: others' actions and our having the buttons. If we remove our buttons, there won't be anything for others to push. Of course, doing this requires a lot of internal work on our part, okay? To really see that the things that we are so sensitive about really are mostly insignificant in the long-term history of the universe. Yeah, like where the spatula goes. It really doesn't matter. Yeah. If you try and have an organized kitchen, it's the most crucial thing on the planet. But if you think of the whole planet and the whole universe and what all sentient beings are experiencing today, our buttons are really not that big of a deal, our sensitivities. Yeah. Okay. So by removing our buttons, we do not eliminate our ethics or our values. Rather, we change the automatic and habitual responses that so often get us tangled in cycles of anger and conflict with others. Yeah, is that your experience? Getting caught in, with other people? And that's so delightful when it happens in a family. Yeah. When every family dinner is like this brother getting mad at, this sister, and about what? Who knows? But they'll find something to pick at each other with. Yeah, so we just we know people's buttons, and we live them out, and they know our buttons, and they let us know. Yeah. Okay, so the next question about is anger ever useful? Is anger a good antidote to vulnerability, guilt, and self-blame? So this is something that people say, oh, somebody was mad at me, somebody accused me, somebody blamed me. If I don't get angry at them because they're wrong, then it must mean that it's my fault. If it's my fault, then, it's like I can't do anything right. I'm always making a mess of things. Nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. Yeah, you remember that thing from grade school? Nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. Think I'll eat some worms. Yeah. Yeah, we remember that one. Yeah, very interesting what we imagine, what we remember from our schooling. Things like that. Okay, but the idea is if somebody's criticizing me, if I'm not angry at them, then I have to be angry at myself and blame myself. And then when I blame myself sufficiently, then I feel guilty. And I also have this idea that the worse I feel, the guiltier I feel, the more it's going to purify me of whatever negativity I did. Yeah? This is a very weird idea we have, but it's there. The more we hate ourselves, the more I'm atoning for whatever horrible thing I did that the other person is mad about. Yeah? Does feeling guilty purify your negativity? No. Does feeling guilty do any good? It keeps the industries of, what is it, ibuprofen and Tylenol good, because when you feel guilty, you have a headache, so you take Tylenol, ibuprofen, yeah, or you feel guilty enough, and then you take antidepressants, yeah, or when you really feel guilty, our trusted package of tissue. Yeah, we keep the Kleenex business functioning well. Yeah. But aside from that, does guilt do any good? Yeah, no. Being able to see our mistakes and owning them and regretting them without feeling guilty, without feeling angry at ourselves, that is useful. Because we take responsibility for what we did, but that doesn't mean we are a bad person or the other person's a bad person or anything like that. We made mistakes. Congratulations, that means you're a human being. Yeah, name one human being that doesn't make mistakes. okay? So, making a mistake is very human. We don't need to be mad at ourselves or at others, okay? So, is anger a good antidote to feelings of vulnerability, guilt, and self-blame? For example, in cases of child abuse, rape, or divorce. In those things, people get really mad at themselves. It's all my fault. When we're angry, we may have the energy to state what this person did to me is wrong. As strange as it sounds, our ego may find comfort in being angry. I know who I am now. I am the victim of abuse, rape, or injustice. That is my identity. That is how I present myself to other people. I know now who I am. I am a victim of abuse, rape, or injustice. When we have a sense of being a victim, though, we also have a sense of being dependent on others for our inner peace. Thus, once we have acknowledged that another has harmed us, we must be alert to any anger tied to this discovery. Okay? So when we make ourselves a victim, it gets very complicated, and it's different in every situation. We fault the other person for doing what they did that harmed us. But then there's part of our mind, especially if you were a child, or part of a minority group, that somehow I brought it on. Somehow it was my fault. Okay, just to give you an example, I remember when a family that I knew, where the parents were separating, and they had 2 little boys, and one of the little boys, he must have been about 5, 6, 7 at that time, and Mom and Dad were splitting up, and he one day said to his mom, I know now why Dad's not coming home. It's because I'm a bad boy. So this child was blaming himself. Of course, the divorce had nothing to do with the child. He hadn't done anything wrong. But children often have that kind of mentality, Something was done unfairly. Oh, I must be because of me. Okay. And then when we have a sense of being a victim, we often then feel, I can't let go of my self-blame until there's justice. And justice means that the other person takes responsibility for what they did. Now, in a court of law, okay, and this is happening now with the whole Epstein papers, when they don't want to reveal to the public the papers, many of the victims of Epstein feel like we're being discounted. How can we heal? Because, he was first arrested in, 2008, that he got a very, very light sentence. And so the people who were abused feel like justice wasn't done. And there's a feeling of, I can't heal until he owns it, until society acknowledges that it was somebody else's doing. But when we feel that way, I can't heal until someone else does something, then we're making ourselves a victim. Yeah, we can heal. It doesn't depend on somebody else taking responsibility. We know what they did was illegal or inappropriate or whatever it was. We know that. Yeah. We don't need a jury to decide that, yeah, in order for us to heal. Okay. So we may have the angry to say what that person did to me is wrong, yeah, and we create an identity from our anger, yeah, and that makes us dependent on the other person to own what they did for us to heal. Initially, we may feel vulnerable if we let go of the protective shield of anger. Fears abound. My anger is justified. If I give it up, who will I be? Yeah. Isn't it tantamount to admitting that what the other person did was right if I'm not angry? It just means they were right. How can I feel self-dignity without being outraged at what others have inflicted on me? Yeah. I'm sure, yeah, we know this when we feel we've been mistreated. Yeah, we're angry and yeah, we feel quite justified. When angry, we may feel a sense of power, but this is false power because fueled by aversion and blame, anger needs an enemy to exist. Genuine self-confidence, on the other hand, is open and lacks this kind of defensiveness. Okay, so when we're really confident in our own assessment of the situation, we know that we were mistreated, yeah, we don't need to defend ourselves and feel like we say, you know, but look at me, it's not my fault. We know it wasn't our fault. Nobody else is blaming us. But so often, you know, when things fall apart, we blame ourselves. Okay, so genuine self-confidence is based on knowing our great human potential and the fundamental purity of our mind, not on others acting in any particular way. It's interesting, isn't it, how our self-confidence is so much based on what other people say about us. Yeah. Somebody says, oh, what you did is wonderful. Yes, they think that, I must be wonderful. Somebody criticizes me for something, oh, it must be terrible. Yeah, it's just somebody else's idea. That doesn't mean that's who we are. Yeah. And other people's ideas, how long do you think they have those ideas? How long do you have ideas about other people? Yeah. Do you spend all day thinking about what somebody else did that was wrong? No. Yeah. Do you think they spent all day disliking you? No. They have better things to do in their life. A thought goes through their mind if I'm mad, so-and-so made a mistake. But, you know, they're not holding it on to it all day, every day. They're too busy thinking about themselves to think about ourselves, about us, you know. Kind of gives them a break, yeah. But we feel sometimes that our anger protects us. Yeah. When angry, you may feel a sense of power, but this is false power. Yeah. Because, you know, we don't have a clear mind. And also, when we're angry, you know, thinking about our Buddha potential, we don't think about it. All we do is, oh, what's wrong with me? I can't do anything right. yeah, it doesn't purify anything to be angry at ourselves. Yeah, that doesn't mean we ignore our own faults. We take responsibility and do something to ameliorate them. Yeah. To heal, we must grow beyond resentment and blame, arriving at a state of peace and acceptance in our heart, where we are willing to let the past be past and to go on with our lives with vitality and compassion. Such healing involves a process that takes time and patience with ourselves. It cannot be rushed or forced. Yeah. How can we release our anger in cases of abuse and mistreatment, whether at the personal, community, or international level? One way is to acknowledge and accept our anger along with the pain and fear that propel it, and to note that all of these are mental events, temporary feelings that arise in our minds, but do not define who we are. Okay? To acknowledge and accept our anger, acknowledge that my anger comes from fear, yeah, from pain. Somebody's attacking me, I'm afraid. Yeah, somebody's blaming me, I don't like it. Yeah. And to note that these are just temporary mental events that arise in the mind, last for a certain amount of time, and then automatically fade. Yeah. You cannot keep, your pain and your anger and your fear 100% active in your mind 24/7. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Yeah, it automatically changes. Why? Because our mind is an impermanent event, and it's changing moment by moment due to causes and conditions. Okay, so the point is, sometimes to get a little bit of space here with our anger and not, like, oh, I'm angry at the other person, I have to get my revenge, or I'm angry at myself, oh, something so bad around me. But just to okay, it's a mental event, and then stop and maybe assess, is this mental event really an accurate description of the situation? Or is it an exaggeration of what happens? Okay, chances are it's going to be an exaggeration. Okay, let me tell you another story. This is also from one of our friends at the Abbey. She had a son who fell in love with a woman from a different culture, yeah, and a different religion. And they wanted to get married. That happens all the time in this country, okay, no big deal. And the bride, the fiancé, his fiancé's family lived in Los Angeles. They were going to have a big party welcoming and to celebrate the engagement, okay? So, of course, they invited our friend to go to Los Angeles for the party. She's the mother of the to-be groom. Okay, so she flies down to LA. She goes to the house, of the fiancé's family, rings the doorbell, somebody answers, and she goes in, and she doesn't know anybody there. She had never met the family before. She only knew the fiancé who was there, and of course her son. But so the only person she saw in this whole room full of guests was the fiancé, who was busy talking to somebody. Yeah, and our friend comes in. She doesn't know anybody. Yeah, she feels really out of it. Like, what am I going to do? I just stand here. She didn't go up and start talking to anybody or anything. She just feels really awkward, and she starts noticing that the fiancé is still carrying on a conversation with somebody else. Well, that's my son's bride-to-be, and I'm the mother of who she loves. Why isn't she coming to greet me at the door? She knows I don't know anybody else here. Yeah, she knows I feel out of it, and I'm just standing here. This is what our friend is thinking, yeah. This is outrageous. I flew all the way down here for this party, and they don't even welcome me. I'm on the mother of the groom. This is like, so she left. Okay, she came back up here. She told us the story. She is furious. A few of you were here. You remember that? Yeah, she was furious. So we had been practicing, and we still practice, Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. So one of the methods that he says when you get angry is just stop and describe the situation, but you cannot use any descriptive words that make something more or less, and you can't use any emotive words, okay, like happy or unhappy or angry or whatever. You just have to describe the facts of the situation, not the alternative facts. Yeah, but the facts. Yeah. So we asked our friend to do that. So she said, I flew to Los Angeles. I went to the home. I rang the doorbell. Somebody invited me inside. I stood there. The fiancé was busy talking to somebody. She continued talking to that person. I left. Yeah, that was the factual description of it. Everything else was, giving some kind, was shading the situation. Okay. As soon as she said that, she all of a sudden went, oh, yeah. Oh, the anger was coming from me. Yeah. They weren't making me angry. I was getting angry. Okay. Because we often say somebody's making me angry, as if anger is a virus, and as soon as that other person speaks on the wavelengths of their voice, the virus is writing, and it hits our ears, and now I am sick with anger. You made me angry. You gave me that virus. It's your fault. Well, maybe revisit that description. Yeah, that's not what's happening. Yeah. We got angry by ourselves if we just described the situation. Take the spatula situation. I was working in the kitchen. I was washing dishes and then putting them away. I picked up the spatula. I knew it needed to go somewhere in the area of where people cook. So I put it in one of the containers. That's all. Yeah. Why did one person get so bad and the other person feel, I just went to help in the kitchen and I'm getting chased out by that person screaming at me. Ah! Is all that really necessary? Is that coming because of the other person, or is it coming from us? Yeah, it's coming from us. Yeah. My parents used to tell me that they used to call me Sarah Bernhardt. I didn't know who Sarah Bernhardt was, you know. I assume that it was somehow something negative, yeah. But once there was the internet a few, decades later, I looked up Sarah Bernhardt to find out who she was. She was an actress in the silent movies who always had overwhelming displays of emotion, so that everything was very dramatic. So I guess I was very dramatic with my emotions when I was a little kid. Yeah, I don't remember that. My emotions were justified, but nobody understood me. Did you feel that way as a kid too? Yeah. My emotions are so important. They're so justified. And they didn't understand me. It's their fault. Yeah. I got blamed for what my brother did. Yeah. Okay. So how can we release our anger? Yeah. One way is to acknowledge and accept our anger along with the pain and fear that propels us, and to note that all of these are just mental events, temporary feelings that arise in our minds but do not define who we are. In Buddhism, we practice observing the arising, abiding, and disappearing of such mental factors without either rejecting the feelings or letting them overwhelm us. You just sit there and it arises and then it subsides, Okay. Whether we reject a feeling or become attached to it, the result is similar. That emotion controls us. Okay? So whether we say, oh, I shouldn't be angry. Anger is bad. I'm creating negative comment. I'm bad for being angry. I'm so mad at myself for being angry. How many of you get mad at yourselves for being angry? Yeah. Okay. Then what controls us? Our anger at ourselves controls us. Is that a reliable cognizer of events? No, it's totally something blown out of proportion. Yeah. When we can allow an emotion to be without either pushing it away or buying into its storyline, it will gradually lose its power over us. But the thing is, every strong emotion has a storyline behind it. Yeah. And this and this and this happened, and the result is I feel whatever I feel. In other words, they made me feel this. The situation made me feel this, as if we don't have any choice in terms of how we feel. Okay? But there's a storyline behind it, which is, I just wanted to be happy and not have any problems, and now this person did this and that, and they said this and that, and this and that happened, and as a result, I feel afraid, I feel pain, I'm miserable, I'm lonely, I'm misunderstood, and it goes on and on and on. Okay? There's a storyline, like our friend had the storyline of this poor fiancé. All she did was continue talking to somebody. And all of a sudden she was the devil incarnated, Huh? Okay. So if we're just able to just ride out the feeling without believing in the story, without saying, oh, I'm so justified in what I'm feeling. The world should know what I'm feeling and understand me. This is my Sarah Bernhardt, okay? Yeah. The world should know how much that hurt and how much those people just don't understand me, and I'm getting blamed for something that I just did by accident. Yeah, that's the storyline that I'm making up and believing. Yeah. Okay. So feelings dissipate by themselves because they are transient by their very nature. Yeah. So, not getting angry, not getting upset doesn't mean we stuff it. Yeah. It means that whatever's happening, we look at it, trying and say, what part of this situation, where there's some conflict or disagreement, what part is my responsibility and what part is coming from the other person? So it's not all or nothing. I did everything wrong or they did everything wrong. Yeah. Chances are I contributed something, they contributed something. Yeah. You brought this up the other day. Do you have a specific story you're thinking about?
Last story?
Huh?
The story I told about my life?
Yeah, about something where you were believing in the storyline. You were telling yourself a story about something that happened, and you got angry. Do you remember? Just because she has very good stories, and
I'm a Sarah Bernhardt number 2 too. Well, the biggest story that I told myself was the way in which I was raised. And my parents, because I didn't get a lot of what I wanted, the way in which they raised us, because they were quite a bit older when they had the three of us, was a little bit more old-fashioned, a little bit more traditional. Women basically became homemakers, husband became, steelwork factory workers. And I held a resentment towards them for all of my life because that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I came to the Abbey here just seething with this resentment and this hurt that they had somehow denied me some love and freedom and affection. And through just being here long enough, I realized that my parents were they were doing the best they can, and that the love that they had for us, we turned out to be three really nice people, even though the thought that I had was that they had screwed us up. And so I found out that I have a resiliency, I have an ability to really be determined and to be thoughtful and to do things well. And so, but it took me 40 years to stop holding that resentment, and it was a button. So anytime someone would push at this, demanding that I conform to some sort of idea, I just went off the handle. So now when I look at my parents, I see the wonderful gift they gave us. They had all of parents have got their own suffering. That's another whole thing that they deal with. So I really came to see that I had imputed a lot of meaning on their intentions to raise good, healthy, sustainable children. And instead I ran a victim story for like 40 years until finally I was able to let that go.
Yeah. But the point is, we create the drama. Yeah. Sometimes the other person cooperates and plays the other part, but we're creating the Dharma and we did something. Bringing up children is not easy. Yeah, I think it's the most difficult thing you ever do, so I didn't have any. Yeah, my mother kept saying, wait until you have children, then you'll know what we went through. Yeah, so always, I didn't have kids. Yeah. Hi, Mom. Yeah, but, really looking back at so many conflicts I was involved in, yes, I contributed something to them. Yeah, I didn't communicate well. And, when I was a kid, I could sometimes be very bratty. Yeah, I hate to admit it, but it's actually true. So sometimes, not all the time, sometimes, they were quite right in having to discipline me because I was acting like a brat. Yeah, but at that time, I couldn't see it. Now I can look and own the part that comes from me, and in situations that happen now when I'm an adult, when something's happening, to okay, what's my part in it? Yeah, it's not a thing of either they're wrong or I'm wrong. They're all to blame or I'm wrong to blame. Okay, the next question here. Is anger an essential for winning at sports? No. How come people fight then? After sports teams, somebody wins, somebody loses, you fight. I mean, in Britain, and sometimes here too, but especially in Britain and in Singapore too. No, never in Singapore. They go on the field and there's fist fights if your team lost. Yeah. Okay, the sports enthusiast claims that anger helps us win the game, but is it beneficial to focus on winning? Is it worthwhile to reinforce a negative characteristic just to get a trophy? In other words, you have to be angry to win the game. So anger is going to be the cause of you getting a trophy. Everybody wants a trophy because anger will make you ruthless. You can hit that ball or throw that ball or run that ball better than anybody else. They can't even catch you. Okay. Our minds become very tight when we make an us versus them too concrete. My team must win. We have to fight and beat the enemy. Why? Because my team is best, and and why is it the best team? Because it's my team. I wouldn't have a team that wouldn't be the best. Yeah. Of course, the other team feels the same way. Who is right? Competitive sports may be a socially accepted way of venting anger, but they don't cure the anger. Okay? They only temporarily release the physical energy accompanying anger, and in fact may breed more hostility. We're still avoiding the real problem, our misconceptions of people and situations. Okay? So, many of you have heard me say this before. I went to USC when O.J. Simpson was, fullback? When he was fullback, okay? So he was the king of USC, and USC's football team, yeah, rah, rah, and we're gonna win. And I didn't understand football. I don't like football, but I was dating a guy and so I went, because I liked him better than I liked football. But that thankfully didn't work out. So I was at these games where OJ is, everybody is focused on him. And what was the USC crowd screaming to OJ to do during the game? Kill, 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 kill. I didn't scream that at that game. I couldn't stomach that. But the whole side of the stadium, is screaming, kill. Yeah, kill entails anger. Yeah, it planted some seed in OJ's mind for later in his life. Yeah. But did it help him win the games? Was it a valid thing to do? Was it kind? Was it constructive? I don't think so. Okay. Okay, so anger during, and this is at sports, I mean, really. Not earlier this year, somebody hit a ball and at one of the baseball games, and it was a home run. It went into the bleachers in center field. And what was it that happened? Either somebody in the audience caught it, or somebody jumped up and caught it. One of the outfielders caught it. Something like that. But anyway, there was one guy in the bleachers, and he wanted to catch that ball. Yeah, and he was really mad when somebody else caught it, But this is, people say, how did the batter get the energy to hit that ball so hard? Well, it's the pitcher against the batter. And the pitcher is going to strike him out. No, I'm going to hit that ball. Okay, this is kind of, yeah, isn't it? Maybe we should take how about an army story? Okay, this is what the army encourages. Yeah, how do you train a soldier to kill the enemy? Yeah, you tell them why they should hate that person, everything that person is doing wrong. What is that person doing wrong? Maybe they're growing a crop, working in the field. Maybe they're washing dishes. But somebody doesn't like them being there. So, you teach whoever is in charge to hate those kind of people. Yeah. Yeah. But this is what perpetrates wars. It's what perpetrates a lot of the conflict, that's going on in the country. Okay, so let's stop here. Oh, I'm not finishing this section on sports. You're going to have to go a whole month with still having anger at the other team, and how many of you are from Spokane? You root for the Zogs, don't you? The Zogs, yeah? Gonzaga, yeah? Zags, I got it, I knew it started with a Z. Yeah, so you root for the Zags, yeah? And that's how Spokane gets placed on the map, because there's some good sports team at a school there. Yippee! Yeah, even you go to the Spokane airport, there's ads all over for Gonzaga. It's the fame of the town. Yeah, so it's our team. We don't like that other team. Yeah, beat them. Yeah, do you have to get angry? Yeah. I was really proud of my nephew. He played football in high school. And, and he was really good, apparently. But after every game, he would go to the side of the other team, whether they won or lost, and shake the hand of every player on the other team. I thought, that's cool. Yeah. In other words, this is a game. There's no hard feelings because you beat us. There's no, we're happy we beat you, but it doesn't mean that you're bad. Yeah. Okay. So we'll get through this section next month. Okay. So we'll dedicate the merit. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. So now begins the big transformation. Yeah, may this be, this is just a wish. It's just a wish. We've been saying this for 2 years. May this be the last BBC in the dining room. Sharing the Dharma Day. Well, the last BBC too. Yeah, may it be the last Sharing the Dharma Day in the dining room. In all future Sharing the Dharma days, may we be in the Buddha Hall. Yay! Yeah. Where we don't have to do now making this back into a dining room so we can have lunch. Ms. Tracy.
If I could have everybody's time for a minute. Oh. And I won't take too long because I don't want you to get mad at me from keeping you from lunch. So anyway, some of you are here for the first time, are new here. And I just thought I'd say a few things about how this place got to be in a way. For one, the teachings are offered freely. The Buddha set it up that way. There's no charge for anything. The monastics here, they've dedicated their lives to learning the teachings, not just to be able to recite them, but to actually test them, know them, and share them from their hearts. They gave up their careers, they gave up their possessions, they don't work. And the other thing is that everything you see here has been donated. So this is an incredible phenomena of generosity. Everything that we are getting to do today is based on other people donating before we got here, so that it's here for us. And whatever we might donate will be here for whoever visits in the future. And when you think of how precious these teachings are, that they have the potential to bring you peace and happiness, better relationships, freedom from, uncontrollable anger, it's priceless. And so enjoy the gift from the community here. And also, if you're inspired to share, there's little donation baskets and boxes back there. There was one here. Anyway, but once again, there's no obligation to do anything but to just share in our day today. So thank you for being here.
Okay, because we have to change the room into a dining room now, we have to have a little bit of a break, probably 10, 15 minutes. Kitchen, we should be able, kitchen's fine.